I want to welcome everyone to Torah is for Everyone. And as I said before, I'd like to welcome Miriam and Richard again, and Jerry and Baruch. And as I said, we're going to take a break after tonight for the next, it'll be a month, 4 weeks that we're not going to have these
Oh, you said
classes.
starting tonight.
Well,
This
after
is our
tonight.
last night.
This is our last one. Next
Okay, and then
Wednesday night is Yom Teruah, Rosh
right,
Hashanah.
right. Okay.
Yeah. And then after that, we have Yom Kippur, which falls on a Shabbat. Kol Nidre is the Friday night. And then after that, we have Erev Sukkot, followed by the following week is Hoshana Rabbah and Shmini Atzeret, and ending with Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah actually is not a biblical holiday. It's an added holiday that our sages have added with the rejoicing of the Torah. Normally, it would have been at Pesach, is when we should begin our new year. They say it's Rosh Hashanah because they say that's when the earth was created. How they could know that, Vesach nicht, but I'm sure they have a good reason for choosing that. And but this week we have a beautiful double portion, and he's speaking to every one of us here today. All right. So Brian, Baruch, if somebody comes into your room, just keep it on mute. All right. So you don't disturb the reading. And if anybody wants to read, good boy, chick. If anyone would like to read, just let me know. I'm going to go now to this version, Sepharia. And here we can see, everyone can see. Okay. See, it says Nitzavim, which means we are standing, you are standing, all of you, before your God, Yud He Vav He, your tribal heads, your elders, your officials, every father, every household in Israel, your children, your wives, even the stranger among you, the stranger within your camp, from the highest to the lowest. You see the highest, your tribal heads, all the way to the lowest, to the person who draws your water. Look what we have, what we're going to do. And this applies to us today too. To enter into the Brit, the covenant of our God, Yud He Vav He, which he gave us this day with its rulings, which its warnings. The sanctions are actually with its warnings. In order to establish you this day as God's people. So he warned us about all the things. We've been reading them, the Tochecha, and we'll be reading some more today, in order to make us his people. You know, I was listening to a psychologist today who was talking about there's another new way of dealing with children. And it's always, you know, in a soft, quiet way where you don't really give your kids too many boundaries. And this is totally opposite to the Torah. God gave us boundaries so that we could be safe within these boundaries. That's what these warnings are about. If you go outside the boundaries, you're going to get into trouble because you open Pandora's box. You don't know where these boundaries are going to lead. And that's in every single area of our lives. And we've spoken about quite a few of them. And at the very end, when we start again after Simchat Torah, and we're going to start at Bereshit at the beginning, we're going to see how God created the boundaries right at the very beginning. So here he's establishing us, all of us who are here today, as his people, in order to be your God, as promised you, as sworn to your fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he's talking to us, to you, Richard, to you, Jerry, to you, Miriam, to you, Brian, to me. He's speaking to us today. He says, I made this covenant, these 10 commandments, with its warnings, not with you alone, with those who are standing here today before our God, but also with those who are not with us here this day. In other words, it's with us. He spoke about the people then and with us today. And boy, do we need it today. well you know that we dwelt in the land of Egypt. This is the prototype. Again, how many times have we read in these 5 books about the land of Egypt? What happened there is a prototype, which is a formula, which is it has all the elements that we need to watch for because they would be repeated over and over in our history. Well, we pass through the midst of various other nations, which our people have all through our history. And you have seen the detestable things, the fetishes of wood, stone, silver, and gold that they keep. Everywhere we go, even today, we can see these fetishes, these statues everywhere. Perhaps there is among you some man or woman, or some clan or tribe, whose heart is even now turning away from our God to go and worship the gods of those nations. Perhaps there is among you a stalk sprouting poison weed and wormwood. So I wanted to look up what that means. In some of the other versions, it says gall and wormwood. Wormwood actually comes from a plant where they make absinthe, and absinthe is an alcohol. And the absinthe is, it can cause, believe it or not, it can cause convulsions, hallucinations, mental deterioration, and psychoses. So look at this. If we turn away from our God, it could cause those things. And it refers to it, and poison weed and wormwood, it refers to a bitter and deeply distressing experience, feelings of bitterness, of anger, of resentment, all these things. When we turn to other gods, we open up our minds, our bodies to be attacked by all kinds of enemies, of things, physical, emotional, and spiritual. But when we hear the words of these warnings, these people, there are some of these people who may imagine that they have a special immunity, that they say, I'll be safe, even though I follow my own willful heart. We know when we do something that goes against what is good and right for us, we are going to suffer the consequences. It happens every day in our lives. If you drink too much alcohol, you're going to get sick. If you smoke too many cigarettes, you're going to get sick. If you eat too much chocolate, you're going to get sick. Drink too much, whatever it is we do, whatever addictions we have, whatever areas are pulling us away from our God, we're going to get sick. And it says here, to the utter ruin of moist and dry alike. There are other translations in some of the other, but I couldn't understand what it was. So the beautiful thing about this Sepharia is if I click on it here, like this, it's going to come, I'm going to get to the commentaries. And to tell you the truth, I don't like Rashi too much. Ibn Ezra is better, but I really liked Ramban. And what Ramban says here, it says, a desiring soul is thirsty. Just like it says, my soul is thirsty for you. And we get thirsty. Our soul sometimes has an emptiness and we don't know what's going to fill it. So we look for all these things that will fill the soul that are very fleeting, and they never do. And it says, the more a soul, listen to this. This is Ramban now. The more a soul satisfies the desires of his bad nature, the more he hungers for it. The more one starves it, the more it is satisfied. And I know that that's true. I love chocolate. And the more chocolate I eat, the more I want it. So I have to either get rid of it or I have to limit myself to it. And this is something that God is telling us. So it says, if he satisfies his soul with stubborn and overpowering desires for which it thirsts, his soul will add watered to the thirsty, which is what this means. For then he will desire and thirst for things which up to then he felt no desire for. It's a little bit like a cigarette. At the very beginning, you don't like it. It doesn't taste good. But the more you have it, the more the body desires it, and then it's almost impossible to stop. So we have to really be honest about what our struggles are and allow ourselves to have these boundaries right at the very beginning. That's why
Remember the other day we were talking and um, obviously you know this, but it doesn't only apply to, cigarettes and physical things, but even when our ideas start to get into areas that are kind of shady, it's almost like an attraction to certain ideas which are really not healthy, whether
yes,
it be other gods or other religions or other practices, and we start to, distance ourselves. To me, I found in my life, it's like God gets further away from us. Maybe we're drawing further
we
away from
get
God.
further away. He's always
Yes,
there.
yeah, we're drawing further away from God,
Yes,
whether we know it or not. But
exactly.
some ideas are very seductive. I just are very like chocolate, very, you want to believe them or you get hooked on them, or even things like reincarnation and a lot of things that even exist in Judaism today. But a lot of these things, anyway, they're like chocolate almost.
Exactly. Yes, Richard.
Yeah, I'll just spin off of that. The light chocolate thing. I'm an adherent of Alcoholics Anonymous and derivative programs. And one of the main points of Alcoholics Anonymous, what they have found among their fellowship, is the craving phenomenon, whereby when a real alcoholic ingests alcohol, the craving intensifies. It's not like he or she can satisfy a craving. The alcohol causes a craving for more alcohol.
Yes.
So, okay, now that's the sort of definition of an alcoholic. Someone who cannot control her or his drinking of alcohol. And there and the craving phenomenon, which I just alluded to, also called an allergy phenomenon, is something that I can hear in this conversation in my terms. So I'm going to mute myself now.
Yeah, well, it's the same with sugar. There's that bacteria or that I don't know. I guess it's a bacteria that lives in the system that craves sugar, and it gives the brain when you eat the sugar, it sends the brain a message of euphoria, and it's almost like that euphoria needs to be satisfied. Every addiction is like that we have. It needs to be satisfied. And anything that we can't learn to control is really controlling us. And what God is saying in all these things, don't let anything control you. I am the only one that you need to turn to for all these things. We don't realize just how real God is in our lives. I've heard so many Jews who say, God is out there. We have our own life. He's not interested in us. We have to do everything on our own. God helps those who help themselves. But it's not true. God is so ever present with us. And unfortunately, we don't always turn to him. There's an expression, I'm always telling this to Miriam. A dog, it's in the Proverbs, a dog returns to its vomit. We think we've conquered something, and then all of a sudden, here we are right in the midst of it again. If we're having stress or whatever is going on in our lives, it's almost like we forget and we turn back. But we always have to remember we have an opportunity to go to God and say, please help me. And he does. He really does. He communicates with us. Okay, so the person here, we're back to the person who thinks that they can continue doing things their own way. I did it my way. And they may imagine that they have some special immunity. I'll be safe even though I follow my own willful heart. The Lord will never forgive that person. Rather, the Lord's anger and his wrath, his passion, will rage against them. It's very hard for us to understand that. Because when we talk, people are always saying, why did the Holocaust happen? Why did October 7th happen? Why did all these things happen? But God is saying to us, you've gone so far from me. You are so outside the boundaries of what I've given you as what you can do. He said, I'm going to turn my face from you, and my anger will rage against you till every warning recorded in this book comes down upon them. And God, Adonai, Yud He Vav He, blots out their name from under heaven. You know, this is really an important line for us, especially now before Yom Kippur. Remember what Moses said when he was praying for his people? God was going to destroy them all. He was so upset with them with the golden calf. We were not innocent. We were worshiping the golden calf, and we're still worshiping the golden calf. And he was going to blot them out. He said, I'm going to make a new people. And God said, listen, you've gone through all this trouble. Blot out my name from your book. That's what Moses was willing to do. And what did God said? No one can take the name out of my book except me. No one can pay the price for someone else. But here it says, God blots out their name from under heaven. I don't know what that means, to tell you the truth. I don't know what the final outcome is of every human soul. Religion has it down pat. Christians say, well, if you believe in Jesus and you're a born again Christian, you're going to heaven and you're in the book. I don't know. According to the Torah, that's not the case. According to the Torah, you need to have a heart for God. And God is the one who calls us. Does everyone have a heart for God? No. Is everyone who doesn't have a heart for God going to be blotted out from under heaven? I don't know. It's not up to me. That's up to God. But each one of us has to go before God and ask him, please help me, show me. We have a right to be shown. We have a right to ask God, show me how to live my life. As for such a clan or a tribe, Yud He Vav He will single it out from all the tribes of Israel for misfortune, in accordance with all the warnings of the covenant recorded in this book of Torah. You know, sometimes we see people who are absolute schlemazzles. They just seem that everything.
Peggy,
Yes, Jerry.
Peggy, yeah. The Talmud says that all Israel shall have a share in the heaven above.
Okay, they could say what they want. We
yes,
don't know.
You're going by. I just think, but because here they said like who will go there, who will go what, but that is a saying that they say all Israel shall have a share, because you mentioned blotting out and this and that. So
No, but at some point, all of Israel will be. Like in Isaiah, I think it says that's, but at that point, God says, all Israel will turn, they will turn back to God.
Yeah,
So-
and
so-
who is Israel? There are Israelites who were very, very disobedient in the time when we read the Torah. Look at Korach. Korach was a cousin of Moshe. And what happened to him? The earth swallowed him up. I don't know the state of his soul. I don't know what God is going to do to his soul. But in the end, everybody who comprises the Israel of God, the Israel who God chooses in the end, and that will include non-Israelites, Gentiles, because remember, the only two who entered the promised land after we spent the 40 years in the desert were Joshua and Caleb, a natural-born citizen of Israel, and a Gentile, a Kenizzite. Caleb was not a Jew. These are pictures. So just because something's written in the Talmud, we have to compare it to what the Torah says. If something's written in the New Testament, could be true, compare it to what the Torah says. There are things in the Quran that are true, compare it to what the Torah says. The Torah is for those who believe, and not everybody does, is our plumb line, is the words that we can measure, we must measure every truth against, because otherwise it becomes our truth and not God's truth. So later generations will ask, the children who succeed you, like our children, and foreigners who come from distant lands, and they see the plagues and the diseases that the Lord has inflicted upon that land, all its soil devastated by sulfur and salt, beyond sowing and producing, no grass growing in it, just like the upheaval of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboyim, which the Lord overthrew in fierce anger. All the nations will ask, why did God do this to this land? Why was there such a horrible anger, a wrath, an awful wrath? And they will be told, because they forsook the covenant that God, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, God of their ancestors, made with them upon freeing them from the land of Egypt. They turned to the service of other gods and worshiped them. You know what? I should be dead. Honestly, God should have struck me down. I don't know how I'm sitting here today, 35 years after starting to read the Torah. I went after other gods. I worshiped gods whom we had not experienced and whom God had not given to us. So the Lord was incensed at that land and brought upon it all the curses recorded in this book. The Lord uprooted them from their soil in anger. We were kicked out of the land. When we kept sinning over and over and over and over, finally God said enough. And he kicked us out, and we were taken by Nebuchadnezzar to Babylon. That was the first exile. And we've been exiled ever since. Now the prophecies are coming back, are coming true, and we're starting to go back to the land. But look what's going on in our land. It's a nightmare that's happening there, because our people are not, they're turned to every other god but to our God. You know, I go to a health food store not far from me. It's owned by an Israeli lady. And in the window, she has a great big Buddha sitting in the window. And how many times I've wanted to say to her, take the Buddha out of the window. And, you know, I'm looking for, it's like it'll fall on deaf ears. It doesn't mean anything. And I hardly go anymore because it bothers me so much. But I just keep praying for her. But how many of us, how many of our own people, they run to India, gurus, they're into Buddhism, they're into everything except the Torah. So God uprooted us from the land in anger and fury and great wrath, and he cast us into another land, as is still the case. Richard is in California. We're here in Montreal. We're not in our land. We've been uprooted from our soil. Secret acts belong to our God. The secret things belong to God. But what God wants us to know is for us and our children forever, so that we can apply all the teachings of this Torah. You know, I don't like how it's translated here, concealed acts.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I don't like
Because
that
it's,
either.
you know, I don't like it at all, because what he's saying is the secret things belong to God. And how many of us prefer to spend time spending time under the secret things, like studying the depths of the Kabbalah, the depths of the Gemara, the depths of all these secret writings everybody wants to know. But God says, I've given you everything you need. It's for you and your children to apply. We need to apply the commandments, all the Torah. That's what we need. And he says, when all these things happen to you, the blessing and the curses, the tochecha, the warnings that I have set before you, and you take them to heart, where you are in the various nations to which your God has banished you, US, Canada, our parents, Russia, Ukraine, Poland, wherever we come from, we have been banished there. When these things happen to you and you return to your God, all of us here today are returning to our God. And those listening, if this is an interest to you, then means you want to return to your God. You and your children. Oh, how I wish my children would heed God's command with all our heart and soul, just as I've commanded you this day. Then your God will restore your fortunes and take you back in love. And to tell you the truth, this happened to me. One of my favorite verses is in the book of Joel. God will restore the years that the locust has eaten. When I came back after spending 10 years traveling throughout all over the place through the New Age, looking for truth, involved in all these foreign gods and foreign philosophies and foreign religions, let me tell you, I had lost everything. I was sick like a dog. I came back to Montreal, came to God, and he has restored the years that the locust has eaten. And now I'm so happy where I am. Not always easy, but I know that God has taken me back. It's like the prodigal son. Yeshua told the story of the prodigal son, if you remember. There was a young man, the son of a very wealthy man. A man had two sons, and one of them said, "You know what, Father, the younger one," excuse me, he said, "Give me my inheritance now. I want to be free. I want to be free. I want to do what I want. I don't need it after you're gone. I want it now." So the father gave him his inheritance, and he went out and he squandered it on free living, on anything he wanted, and all the friends he had. Whoa, they loved him because he had spent all their money on them. And before you know it, his inheritance was gone. I did the same thing. I had been wealthy, lived in Westmount, had my own home. I sold everything, moved away to search for the truth. When I came back, I had nothing, came back with nothing. So this young man finally ends up taking care, this Jewish man ends up taking care of the pigs, imagine. And he says to himself, you know what? Even the lowest servant in my father's house is eating better than me. I'm eating better. The pigs are eating better than me. So he decides to humble himself and go back to his father. And he went back home, and his father saw him coming, and he said, "Father, please forgive me. I please just hire me, and I'll be a servant in your home." And his father threw him a big banquet and was so happy to have him back. And the older brother said, "I've been here with you always. You never threw any banquet for me. Look at all that I've done for you." And the father said, "But my son, you were always with me. And this one went away, and now he's come back." And this is what God wants from us. It doesn't matter how far we've gone away from him. We always have the opportunity to come back. And it says, God will bring you together again. This is us. We are going to be gathered together from all the peoples where your God has scattered you. Can you imagine? Even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, even if we're in Montreal, from there, God will gather you. There, God will fetch you. And he will bring you to the land that your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And God will make you more prosperous and more numerous than your ancestors. Then your God will open your heart. He talks about that over and over again in Isaiah, in Jeremiah, in Ezekiel. He will take our heart of stone and turn it into a heart of flesh. And your hearts of your offspring, our children. Can you imagine? All our children will come to know God, to
What I
love.
find that I love about this,
Yes.
sorry, what I love about this is that I think God knows our hearts and our readiness, but we don't always have what it takes. That God needs to, it says God will open up our hearts.
Yes.
We don't always, like, it's almost too much for us to understand what that means. God has to come to us, but we
Yes.
have to receive it.
Yes.
And that's why when you said before, you know, the 10 years or more, whatever, that you were worshiping other gods, which I was doing too, and you said you should have been dead. And I know what you're saying, because I feel the same way. The things I've done and I continue to do sometimes, whatever, I should be dead. But God knows the soil that we, you know, He knows our hearts,
Right.
and He knows your readiness to turn to Him, and
Yes.
you have a contrite heart, like the Psalms, and God knows these people, and there are others who just, you know, the ones who He says, "Oh, blot your name out." They're people who just, God knows, they've gone to the end of their conscience, so to speak.
They're almost
I mean,
soulless.
huh?
They're almost like soulless.
Yeah, it's almost like they've gone to the end. There's no more conscience in there.
Like Pharaoh did.
Yeah, and well, I told you, I always tell the story, but I don't know, Richard didn't hear it, whatever. But I remember reading this story many years ago. At this point, I don't know if I was going to the church. I was interested in. I just knew God was calling me, and I was doing so many things. So I read this account of this. I think he was 15, and he said something like, he said, "I finally made the big switch." Now, the context I was reading it was in people who have consciously made a choice to become either Satanists or whatnot. Whether this is exactly, just understand where I'm coming from. He decided to make the big switch. It's almost like he's saying, my conscience, my soul do not belong to God anymore. I'm making a switch and turning to pagan gods, whatever you want to call it, demons, whatever. But he said that, and I got such a shiver, that like somebody like that, who's almost like when you turn a switch on or a switch off, the door is closed and that's it. And God knows when we've reached that point. That's why, Peggy, you say you should have been dead, but He knew your heart. The same with me and a lot of people.
Right.
I find that amazing.
It is amazing. And he gave me life again. It's like he
Yeah,
breathed into the dry bones, you know, of
right,
Ezekiel.
right.
It's beautiful. So God will open our hearts and the hearts of our offspring to love our God with all our heart and soul, in order that you may live. Today we live. We know what it is to have joy, to have a sense of not being alone in the world. It doesn't mean we don't get lonely, doesn't mean we don't get sad, doesn't mean we don't struggle like everyone else. There's something, we have a hope that's unconquerable. Your God will inflict all those curses upon the enemies and foes who persecuted you. Alavai. You, however, will again heed Yud He Vav He and obey all his divine commandments that I command upon you this day. And your God will grant you abounding prosperity in all your undertakings. Doesn't mean we'll all be wealthy, but like Pirkei Avot says, who is rich? The one who is happy with what he has. But here it's saying, in the issue of from the womb, prosperous, we have lots of children. Look at the world today. Most of the cultures are falling apart. They have no children. I just listened to this Jewish guy, Jeremy Gimple, who's living in the north in Judean hills in Israel, and he decided to take his wife and kids. He's an Orthodox Jew to Italy. He says the place has no soul anymore. Nobody's having children. It seems that only the Orthodox Christians, Orthodox Islamists, and Orthodox Jews are having children. But all of them have a sense of God, even though they may be they're not sure who the God, the real God is, but they know the family is important and children are important. In the issue from the womb, the offspring of your cattle, whatever you do, produce of your soil, abounding prosperity. For God will again delight in your well-being. Isn't that marvelous? Delight in our well-being as in that of your ancestors, since you will be heeding your God and keeping the divine commandments, his 10 commandments, and his Torah that are recorded in this book of the teaching. Once you return to your God with all your heart and soul. And that's what we need to do, especially now, this time of year. We need to 100% turn to him. And when it says delight in your well-being, sometimes we get sick, not so much because we're eating too much chocolate or we're doing things that are not so great for us, which are also true, but because maybe we've turned away from God. Maybe we have to really search and say, okay, God, what's going on? Heal me spiritually, physically, emotionally. Surely this instruction, this Torah, which I command you this day, I don't like this version. It's not too difficult for you. It's not too far. It's not beyond your reach. See, he's saying it's right here. You don't have to run. You don't have to run and study all the other extra books. It's not in the heavens that you should say, who among us can go up to heaven and get it for us and teach it to us so that we can observe it. He's saying we can all understand it. It's right here. That's why I read it as a lay person. I'm not a PhD, but I've been reading it for 35 years. I've been living it. I've been experiencing God in my life.
But
It's
we're
not
so often taught or we observe these groups, whether mystical groups, whatever, who say, or even in certain sects of Buddhism, whatever, that, you have to practice for like 20 years before you could even be at have a slight idea of or slight concept of enlightenment or whatever, or however
right.
you want to word it, or what God is in our lives. And this is like telling you it's not complex and mystical and so far away that you have to meditate for 20 hours a day before you could even get into the nursery school of religious enlightenment, So I think it's interesting. It's wonderful that it says that. It's not so
Exactly.
esoteric that only the initiates can understand it or interpret it.
Exactly. It's like here it says, it's not beyond the sea. I don't have to travel to India. Who
Right.
among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us so we may observe it? It's right here. Any of us can read it. He was speaking to the simplest of people who were standing at the base of Mount Sinai. No, it's very close to you. It's in your mouth. It's in your heart so that you may observe, you may obey. You see, I set before you this day life and prosperity, death and adversity. For I command you this day to love your God, walk in his ways, walk in God's ways. He gave them to us. They're not impossible to understand. Keep God's commandments, the 10. That's it. He gave Adam and Eve 1, he gives us 10. And the rest is all how to apply it. His Torah, his mishpatim, his chukim, his mitzvot, so that you may thrive and multiply, and that your God may bless you in the land that you're about to enter and possess. This is what he wants from our people today. When I see what we're going through in Israel, I say, please, God, turn my people back to you so that you can come in. But look what happens. If your heart turns away and you give no heed and are lured into the worship and service of other gods, including ourselves, we make people into gods. I declare to you this day that you shall certainly perish. You shall not long endure on the soil that you're crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. I don't know how many years after we took over the promised land and settled. Was it 400 years? I don't know how many years. I don't remember. But till we were kicked out into Babylon. I call heaven and earth, meaning everything, all the angels and all the people on earth, to witness against you this day, against us. I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. And here he's saying, I beg you, choose life. If you and your offspring would live. How? How do we choose life? By loving your God, by keeping his commandments, holding fast to him, not running all over the place looking for answers. Go to him, and he will lead you to the people, lead you to things where you'll get your answers. For that's how you shall have life. And that's how you will long endure upon the soil that the Lord swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give them. Moses went and spoke all these things to all Israel. And he said to him, I'm now 120 years old. I can no longer come and go. Moreover, the Lord has said to me, you shall not cross over the Jordan. Remember, he was allowed to see it, but he couldn't go over. It is indeed your God who will cross before you. Look, before anybody else. Your God, Yud He Vav He, will cross over before you. If we realize that, and how many times do I have to remember before I go to do something? My God is before me. He's going to go with me wherever I am. When I think I can't do something, trust him and take that step. And he will wipe out those nations from your path. If Israel today turned and realized that it's our God who's going before them, they will wipe out the Hezbollah and the Hamas and the ISIS and all these others. You shall dispossess them. But look, Joshua, God chose Joshua. He didn't choose Moses' two sons. Joshua, because Joshua was always with him. God had given him that heart. He's the one who will cross before you, as the Lord has spoken. And he will do to them, God will do to them, as was done to Sihon and Og, king of the Amorites, and to their countries when God wiped them out. And we'll see that today. Well, how soon, I don't know, but we'll see God wipe out our enemies. God will deliver them up to you, and you shall deal with them in full accordance with the commandments that I have commanded upon you. So these are such important words. Be strong, be courageous, do not fear, do not be in dread of them, for it is indeed your God who marches with you. God will not fail you nor forsake you. Then Moses called Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel. It's important that all of Israel sees him passing the baton to Joshua. Otherwise, they wouldn't have accepted him. You have to be given the position almost legally. Be strong, be resolute, be courageous, for it is you who will go with this people into the land that the Lord swore to their fathers to give them, and it is you who shall apportion it to them. It would be Joshua who would divide up the land and give it to the tribes. And it is indeed the Lord who will go before you. God will be with you and will not fail you or forsake you. Fear not and do not be dismayed. I need to type those words out and put them everywhere in my house. God is with me. He will not fail me. He will not forsake me. I don't have anything to fear. Let me not be discouraged or dismayed. I need to read this almost every single day of my life because we're living in a world where it's so easy to be discouraged, where people are running everywhere looking for answers. Moses wrote down this Torah. He wrote down this Torah. He didn't write it on his own. God gave it to him. And he gave it to the Kohanim, the sons of Levi, who carried it in the Ark of the Covenant to all the elders. And Moses instructed them as follows. Every 7th year, the year set for the Yovel, the Jubilee, the year of remission, when everything would be forgiven, at the feast of Sukkot, when all Israel comes to appear before your God in the place that God will choose, you shall read this teaching aloud in the presence of all Israel. When I read this every 7th year, doesn't seem to be a lot, once every 7 years, we should have Bibi Netanyahu read this Torah aloud in the presence of all Israel today. But what did they do? They took it out of the schools. The kids don't read it anymore in the schools. We did. Well, when I went to school, we read the Bible. But the kids today don't read it. They don't know the 10 Commandments anymore. And look at the mess. Gather the people, the women, the children, the men, and the strangers. We don't have the Shabbos Goy. They're part of us. They keep Shabbat with us. The strangers in our community, they keep all the Torah so that they may hear and learn to revere your God and to observe faithfully every word of this Torah. Ha-Torah hazot. Ha-Torah hazot. Kol divrei ha-Torah hazot. Every word of this teaching. All of them, men, women, children, and the stranger among us. How dare we say the Torah is only for us and they can have their other gods? No wonder the world is in a mess. We're not reading the truth. Our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Their children, too, who have not had the experience, shall hear and learn to revere your God as long as they live in the land that you're about to cross the Jordan to possess. And God said to Moses, the time is drawing near for you to die. Call Joshua, present yourself in the Ochel Moed, that I may instruct him. So here, God is going to instruct Joshua. Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the Ochel Moed, the tent of meeting. And God appeared in the tent. How awesome. How awesome is that? Oh my God, in a pillar of cloud. Imagine if God appeared in a pillar of cloud here in my room. I would probably have a heart attack. A pillar of cloud having come to rest at the entrance of the tent. The Lord said to Moses, you are soon to lie with your ancestors. This people, listen to this. This people will thereupon right away go astray after the alien gods in their midst. Because remember, they were moving into a land where there were people living there, and there were gods, alien gods in their midst, in the land that they are about to enter. They will forsake me and break my covenant that I made with them. Then my anger will flare up against them, and I will abandon them and hide my face from them. They shall be ready prey, and many evils and troubles shall befall them. And they shall say on that day, it's because God is not in our midst that these evils have fallen upon us. Yet I will keep my face hidden on that day, because of all the evil they have done in turning to other gods. And this didn't happen just then. This has happened over and over and over and over in our history, including last October 7th. I hate to say it, but it's true. Therefore, write down this poem and teach it to the people of Israel. Put it in their mouths in order that this poem may be my witness against the people of Israel. Imagine how difficult it was for Moses, who loved his people. I love my people. When I see what we're doing, I want to just plots. When I remember what I did, I want to plots. When I bring them into the land flowing with milk and honey that I promised on oath to their fathers, and they eat their fill and they grow fat, then they turn to other gods and serve them, and they spurn me and they break my covenant, and the many evils and troubles befall them, then this poem shall confront them as a witness, since it will never be lost from the mouth of their offspring. For I know what plans they are devising, even now, before I bring them into the land that I promised on oath. That day, Moses wrote down this poem and taught it to the Israelites. And God charged Joshua, son of Nun, be strong, be resolute, be courageous, for you shall bring the Israelites into the land that I promised them on oath, and I will be with you. When Moses had put down in writing the words of this Torah to the very end, Moses charged the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant, saying, take this book of Torah, place it beside the ark of the covenant of your God, and let it remain there as a witness against you. Well, I know how defiant and stiff-necked you are, even now, while I'm still alive in your midst. You have been defiant towards God. How much more then when I am dead? Gather to me all the elders of your tribes and your officials, that I may speak all these words to them, and that I may call heaven and earth to witness against them. For I know that when I am dead, you will act wickedly and turn away from the path that I commanded you, and that in time to come, misfortune will befall you for having done evil in the sight of the Lord, whom you vexed by your deeds. And Moses recited the words of this poem to the very end in the hearing of the whole congregation of Israel. And I highly recommend, since we're not going to be here next week, read the poem. Read Hazinu, chapter 32. Wow, how powerful is that? How difficult is it to understand?
It's funny, as you're reading it, I'm just sort of quickly doing like a preview and a viewing, like an inner movie of my whole life, and I'm thinking, assessing myself and saying, God, please, because God needs to help us too to be obedient, because it's not always easy,
It's
even in
not.
the simple things. I'm not talking about the obviously different, not stealing and sleeping around. All these are obvious things, but I mean smaller things like reading inappropriate things, thinking like a thought life, and all sorts of things that we commit every day.
Being angry with people we love and really wishing them,
Right.
so many things.
Yeah.
Speaking about somebody behind their back.
Right.
There's so many things that we do. That's why we need a standard by which to live, by which we can measure our behavior. And we need each other. When, if you say to me, I don't agree with what you're saying, I don't agree with what you're doing, I need to hear that. I need to be humble enough to say, you're right, I'm wrong.
And sometimes, well, I know me, for example, we have to also, will be easier on ourselves, in the sense that,
Yes,
we know who we are.
definitely.
We know that we fall short. But with my tendency, my OCD tendency, I tend to, I'll batter myself, and that's not right either.
I know, I do too. Yeah.
It's not right. Just get on with this, like Bugs Bunny. Get on with the show. This is it.
That's funny. It's true. We need to be kinder with ourselves. It's interesting because when King David, when they said he did something wrong, and I think they asked him, or God asked him, who do you want to punish you, man or me? And God chose, and David chose God because he'd be more merciful than we would.
Yeah.
We're really hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, this is a little sort of joke, but not a joke. But when you see a dog and it's done something wrong, it's really funny how they react. They may go hide it under a chair.
They know. They look at, yeah.
And then once you sort of woo them back, and they're back into life again.
Exactly. It's so true. Well, that was a very, I get so excited when I read the Torah. My goodness, I was exhausted before, and it's like it brings you back. It gives you life. It really is life-giving, these words. So anyway, I don't know if Jerry is still here. I don't see him. Maybe he is taking a break. Brian, it was good to see you. I'll see you on Shabbat. Richard, do you have any final words to say before we settle down for the next month?
The one that you sent in the
Shana Tova to all.
Shana Tova to you too. Yes, Brian?
The one that has the not like this one that you were reading off the screen. The one that has it Hebrew on the left side, English on the right side.
Right, exactly.
Okay. How do you what's the to go to that website? What's that website?
I'll send it to you. It's called Mechon Mamre. You can't get it everywhere. You can't always get it. It depends on what kind of computer you use. But I do get it through you can do it through Google. You can open it up through Google. So I'll send you the link, okay?
Okay.
All right. I don't know if you're there, Jerry. Anyway, I guess he's gone. I want to wish you all.
Here he comes.
There you go. All right, Jerry, would you like to read the Aaronic benediction before we finish? By the way, do you have anything to say before we close?
I was just ironic benediction.
Okay, I can't hear you. You're making it's like a.
You're scratching your microphone.
Oh, okay. You hear me better now?
Well,
Yeah.
it was like staticky.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just let me get the book.
Do it in English.
What did you say, Baruch?
Do the Aaronic benediction in English.
Of course.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord shine his face upon you and give you peace and give you peace and give you peace forever.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'kdushaso shel Aaron v'tzivonu levarech es amo Yisrael v'yahavo Yevarechecho. May the Lord who made the heavens and earth bless you from Zion. Adonai, Lord our God, how glorious is thy name over all its works. V'yishmerecho. For protect me, O Lord, for I place my trust in thee. Yoer, may God be gracious to us and bless us and countenance us. Adonai, it is the Lord, our God of mercy and gracious, slow to anger, rich in kindness and faithfulness. Panav, trust to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. Elecho, towards thee I direct my desire. Vichuneko, as the eyes of servants look to the head of their master, and as the maid's eyes to the hand of their mistress, so our eyes look to our God till he take pity on us. Ye so he will receive a blessing from the Lord and justice from God his deliverer. You shall find favor and good with God and man alike. Adonai, O Lord, be gracious to us. We have waited for thee. Be thou strength every morning, our salvation in time of distress. Panav, hide not thy face from me in my day of trouble. Incline thy ear to me, answer me speedily when I call. Elecho, to thee I raise my eyes, O thou art enthroned in heaven. Saying, so shall they put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Lecho, thine, O Lord, is the greatness, the power, and the glory, the triumph and the majesty, for all that is in heaven and on the earth is thine. Thine, O Lord, is the kingdom, and thou art supreme over all. Shalom, peace, peace to the far and the near, says the Lord. I will heal them.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Jerry. That was the best Aaronic benediction I ever heard. I couldn't have said it better myself. Beautiful. And it really my heart stood up. It was gorgeous. May we all hear that. May we all sense that, especially when we're feeling a little low and we're listening to the news, when we become frightened, whatever. Let us always keep our hopes up, knowing that God is in control of everything and that the world is on his shoulders, not on ours, for all of those of us who have a Messiah complex.
Well, if you like that, Peggy, that was an answer to Baruch.
Good. Thank you, Baruch. So I wish you
Sorry,
all.
I didn't hear that. What was that for?
I
Yeah.
said Baruch asked that we did something in English, so that's why I
Oh,
expounded on that.
Much better. I love it.
but
You can
where,
do that.
okay, but where, you got it from a
Siddur.
prayer book?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, beautiful. So I wish everybody a sweet, happy new year. May we be blessed this year. May our families come to know our God. May we, there's so many things that I wish and I pray for, but may God give us the desires of our heart. And let's go through these high holidays, coming out of them with new strength and new vigor and growth and the ability to serve him in a better way.
So what meetings are you having on this, Peggy, now?
Well, we will have on Thursday, October the 3rd, we'll have a Rosh Hashanah service online. I can send you the link. It'll be the same link as the Shabbat service. And then we will have a Kol Nidre service on the 11th, which is Friday the 11th, Erev Yom Kippur. We'll have a regular Shabbat services. This year, Yom Kippur falls out on a Shabbat. And as far as Sukkot, I don't know what we're going to do yet. I don't know if we'll have a service online or we'll just go to people's homes. We'll have to see. We'll all come to your house if you have a sukkah in the back of your house, Jerry. Do you want to?
A blessed year to all. V'kol Yisrael.
Amen.
Uh,
And maybe by this, in 10 days, it'll be 1 year that the hostages have been kept in captivity. May they all be set free. But
How many are
then,
still captive?
110.
You know they have bees behind this Mamonis? They have a
Pardon me?
bees here.
Sorry, I
Honey
don't know what you're saying, Brian.
You know that they have honeybees behind the building here?
No, you're kidding. They have bees at Maimonides in the back?
Yeah, there's a guy who came talked about the bees, and he had a hive with the bees in it. But they
That's
couldn't get it.
amazing. Fantastic. Do you get fresh honey there?
Well, we got a little sample, but we don't get the honey.
You don't get it, eh? Wow. A land of milk and honey right there at Maimonides. Look at that. That's a blessing. All right. Well, we'll see you on Shabbat. So I wish you all Shabbat Shalom. Have
Shabbat
wonderful
Shalom.
holidays. And God willing, we'll see you in the new year, 5785. God bless you, everybody.
That time we'll be in the Star Trek year, where we have to beam me up, Scotty.
Beam me up, Scotty. I used to say that all the time.